Graph, its functions, advantages, and limitations. Now, what are graphs? A graph is a visual representation of numerical data using lines, bars, curves, or symbols. It helps in illustrating relationships, trends, and comparisons in an easy to understand format. Let us now understand the functions of graph. The functions of graph are: first, they facilitate the presentation and interpretation of data in graphical form, which means they represent and interpret the data visually. In other words, we can say that they show data clearly because they turn numbers into pictures, which make them easier to read and understand. The next is that they provide an idea regarding variations in distribution trends. In short, we can say that they reveal trends and variations over time. They show the changes or trends. You can quickly see if something is going up or down or staying in the same position. The next function is that they serve as effective tool in comparing two or more frequency distributions, which means it enables comparison between data sets. Compare things. You can see graphs to compare different groups or types of information. The next one is that they serve as a tool for further analysis. They help us in assisting in advanced analysis. Once the data is in the graph, we can do more with it, like deeper study, etc. Now, the data which we do might be primary data to us, but in future it can also be secondary data to somebody else. So any day data helps in assisting in analysis. Now, the fifth and the last function is that the graphical curve provides answer to various questions. These answers are more accurate when compared to tabular presentation answers, which means they provide more clear and intuitive insights. Basically, it is easier to find answers from a graph than from a table full of numbers. Hence, these are the functions of graphs. Now, let us understand the advantages, or in other words, importance of graphical presentation. The first one, they represent the data in a simple manner which is easy to understand by users. So it is simple and easy to understand. The next, the curves drawn on graphs are helpful in determining values which are not available. So it is easy to estimate missing or future values. Next, the comparison can be made easy if the data is presented in a graphical manner. Now, as we have already seen in the functions, that instead of a table format, if it is in a graph format, it is easy to understand. The next, they are highly attractive. Now, imagine you are given a set of tables where whole data and information is given, and on other side, the same data is given on graphs. Which one do you prefer understanding? Anybody would choose graphs because graphs are easy to understand, and when you see something, it is more easy for our brain to process. Next, they can be used for further data analysis. As we have already covered the point that once you make an analysis, it can be used a number of times later on. The next point is that it is helpful in extrapolation and also interpolation. Now, what does this mean? Extrapolation method means that it is a statistical tool which is used to understand the unknown data from the known data. And then the opposite to that is interpolation, which means it is filling the missing data points within a known range by using the existing data points. The next point is that it is easy to find the values of mean, median, mode, correlation, etc. The next point is that it does not require user to have the knowledge of mathematics as it is presented in a graphical way. Next, it saves time for the users to understand the data as it presents in the form of figures. And also it is helpful in presenting the time series data and frequency distributions on graph. Hence, these are the advantages of graphical presentation. Now, as we know the functions and advantages and importance of graphical presentation, let us now understand the limitations or disadvantages that it holds. The first limitation is not everyone can understand the graph, which means it requires interpretation skills. Not everyone can read a graph right away. You need to learn how to understand and read a graph. So one should possess skills to understand the graph. The next one is less accurate than tables, which means they do not show exact numbers as well as tables do. Which means they do not show exact numbers like the tables do. They are not precise when compared to tables. The next one, it takes time to make. They require much time to construct, whereas tables are simple to construct when compared. Next, can be confusing sometimes. If the graphs are not done well, they can make things harder, not easier, which means at times graphs create problems. Last limitation or disadvantage is that they do not show everything. A graph usually shows only part of the full information. They provide restricted information, which means the data is limited. So it is a good thing that graph has many advantages, but also it is important that we consider its limitations and then take a call on how we want to present our data. End of the day, we have different forms of presenting the data. So it depends on your data and the scope of your data and how you want to represent the data so that it is easily understandable to everybody. Hence, these were the functions, advantages, and limitations of graphs. And also, we understood what are graphs. Thank you.